and welcome to this event for the people we choose and cool for the summer. I'm Carter. I use they, them pronouns, and I am the event coordinator here at Astoria Bookshop. Before we get started, I want to go through just a few little housekeeping things. You will have the opportunity to ask questions during the last 10-ish minutes of this. If you have questions throughout, put them in the chat, and I will mark them to be answered during the Q&A portion. Or you can put it in that ask question feature down at the bottom. And when you type it into the chat, it will also pop up this bubble that's like, hey, do you want to ask it as a question? And it'll put it in there for you. And you can also chat with one another just to talk over on the right over there. I don't know if my camera mirrors me, but it's over there. But we will kick you out if you participate in any trolling, any racial, ethnic, or homophobic slurs. Basically, I'm just asking you all to be nice to one another. Finally, there is a button at the bottom that offers the option to buy a copy of the book. It's in this turquoise greenish color. So be sure to click that. So now let's get started, and I'll read these author bios. Caitlyn Detweiler, who uses she, her pronouns, is the author of several books for young adults, including The Undoing of Thistle Tate and The People We Choose. She is also a literary agent and lives in Brooklyn, New York. Dahlia Adler, who uses she, her pronouns, is an editor of Mathematics by day, the overlord of LGBTQ reads by night, and a young adult author at every spare moment in between. She is the editor of several anthologies and the author of 7 novels, including Cool for the Summer. She lives in New York and her family, with her family, and an obscene number of books. Great. You two take it away.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for that lovely introduction.
Yeah. Caitlyn, new book. Can you please tell everybody about The People We Choose?
Yes.
I'm just going to jump right in. I'm very excited about it, frankly.
It's very sweet. The People We Choose, and it's funny, I don't think I mentioned this in the green room too, Dahlia, but I'm sitting in my childhood bedroom at my parents' right now, and it's happened this way for every virtual event I've had. So I'm surrounded by my Sweet Valley and my Goosebumps book and all of my teenage angst that I had sitting here, and I'm sweating because I didn't want to turn on the AC and have that sound. So I'm so immersed in the PA summer. And for anyone who has read or heard anything about The People We Choose, it is also very steeped in that Pennsylvania summer, in a house in the middle of the woods in a small town, much like where I am, where I grew up, and that was always one of the most important pieces for me. It was there before I knew so many other details of the story. And there's something about summer, and I'm sure you can speak to this too later about your book, about the intensity of summer and the unpredictability of it and the adventure of it, the good and the bad of summer. So that's kind of the hot pot, I get, where this story comes from. And the main character, Calliope, is about to turn 18 that summer, and she has a wonderful idyllic life in the woods with her 2 moms, Mama and Mimi, and her 2 best friends that she's grown up with, who are very much her family, and she's very content with all these things. But there's been this lingering question, because when she turns 18, if she chooses, she can find out the name and make contact with the sperm donor. And this has been, a struggle for her deciding what to do, because she loves her moms. She has a full family. She knows who she is, but there's still those niggling questions. So we start the story with her wondering about that, what she's going to do when she turns 18. And in the midst of this, her kind of little idyllic bubble in the woods is pierced by a new family moving into this kind of creepy old abandoned house in the woods. And the son is her age, and they meet and just immediately have a bond, which is something she didn't expect or really want. She's not big on dating, has sworn against it until college, but Max, this boy, they just immediately, they get one another. And lo and behold, she finds out when she does make contact with the sperm donor that Max's father was the donor. And that is something that is not a spoiler I'm giving away. It's in the flap copy because we very much did not want that to be shocking or feel sensationalized. You know, it's so much of the story becomes about redefining their love and what family means, and kind of the adventure of that exploration and unloving someone in one way to learn how to love them in another way.
I love that. I love the adaptability of love theme, because you don't just stop loving somebody when you want to, and it's still there and you still want to channel it. And I thought you did that so wonderfully in the book.
Thank you.
And I have to say, you didn't mention Pennsylvania in the green room. So I'm going to tell you, I spent all my summers as a kid in Pennsylvania, because that's where I went to camp. The 13 summers in a row in small town Pennsylvania camp. And
I love
oh my God, I loved being back there while reading your book. Like, you could feel like the freshness and the grossness and the trees everywhere. And the atmosphere was so good. And it felt so much like you loved that. And now I know it's because like that's really like home to you. And I love that.
Thank you.
And also so I have a thing for some reason, like if I don't remember exactly what a book's about, I just kind of opt not to read the cover copy and just dive right in. So I dove right into The People We Choose. And as I'm reading and I'm like, I know parts of what this book, like I remembered the sperm donor aspect, not the, it turns out to be Max's father aspect. So I'm like, at some point, I'm like, all right, I gotta go look at the back. But I read the back before I got there. And I think that was brilliant to put it in the back, especially the way that you describe it now. Because it's really a tricky thing. They get into a romantic relationship before they figure this out. And obviously, like, they haven't slept together, but they, do become more intimate. And that's a really tricky thing to handle. So what were like, for you, thinking about like the boundaries and what you really wanted for them, where you wanted them to reach in their relationship before the truth came out? Like, what was really important to you, both to have and not to have for that point?
I never wanted it to feel gross. That was that was big. That was, I didn't want to push past kind of the point of no return too. Like, this is not, to my mind, an incest story. They kiss. It's very innocent. It's very early phases of this relationship. It's more about the mental and the emotional than the physical. And, as a teenager, it's very easy to feel a lot of feelings very quickly, and for me, what was important was feeling that early phase of falling in love emotionally, to think about how you can unlove someone and what makes romantic love different than sibling love, because there's another characters, in the book, one of Calliope's best friends, Noah, she's known literally since she was born. Their moms were in Lamaze class together. He's had a crush on her forever, but she's like you're my brother. I cannot unsee you because I've been raised with you. So I wanted to explore that idea of how we can feel like people that we have no blood relationship with are, just as much sibling or family as someone who does share our blood, and how the implications of that, and how the people we choose, as the title, how we create family, and what of that is a choice versus like what is biological. So in some, it's the love that they feel because of that connection. That's kind of the universal love that they kind of, work to untangle through the end.
Yeah. And like, I feel like what you're saying about like the special thing about summer, moving emotionally quickly, I feel like is so summer. It's just like, if you think of like wet, hot American summer and all that stuff happening in a single day, I mean, part of that is the camp vibes, but I just feel like things somehow accelerate so much in summer. So I love that being the particular setting for it. And a thing that I feel about all your books is they always have such a like thoughtful, nuanced, fully formed premise that makes me think like she came up with this idea as a spark while like reading an article or watching a show or something. It feels so there's something so whole about the way that you create these premises that always makes me wonder where the ideas come from. And I'm not usually I kind of hate the question like what inspired your book, but your books make me ask that. So I am curious, where did The People We Choose come from?
I love that. And I feel like no one's said it that way before. I think of it, I love hypotheticals. Like I'm really obnoxious about hypotheticals and, Immaculate, the first one, like it genuinely was just a thought in my head of like, what would my mom have said if I told her I was a pregnant teen virgin, and I felt like she would have believed me. And from there, like, I'm like, well, I got to write this. And the same, with Thistle, Tate, it was the question of, what if like a teen author didn't really write the book and was like a front for an adult, but that publicity hook wasn't as sexy, so they told this lie and it spiraled out of control. And with The People We Choose, it was this idea of what if I fell in love with someone that I couldn't love? How do you step back from that and try to turn it into a positive? And I think, it's partly too being an agent and thinking about having like that elevator pitch, like it's so important to be able to sum it up. And I feel like I'm thinking about that every day, nonstop, with my authors. And I think I also don't have much time, you can appreciate this. We heard your bio. You have 2 young children. So it feels like unless an idea comes to you that you like absolutely cannot shut down, I don't know, but like I don't entertain the thought because there's just no time to, so it's like the idea has to be so exciting to me that I can't not do it, even if it means taking away like any shred of pretty much non-existent free time there is, it's the
I do know. High concept. Very well. Thank you. The industry actually has a word for this.
Yes.
I don't know, there was something about it, but it's like right from Immaculate. I feel like that is exactly just how I would define your work, is really having that high concept always. But that's so interesting because I 1000% assumed it sprang from what I feel like is increased interest in DNA tests over the past few years. And I totally thought that was the way in. So it's really interesting to learn that I had that completely wrong.
It's funny because I've had this idea longer than even like Thistle Tate. So it's been brewing. And I feel like when I first had the idea, like 23andMe and like that was all out there, but I don't feel like it was present in the way it is now. Like, I have several like close friends who have found their families through that. And like when that was not a part of the equation when I was first thinking about this idea, but I knew if I was really going to go for this, like I had to really think through what the message would be and to do it sensitively and to do the story justice. So it needed to like marinate longer than my other ideas did. And in the meantime, things like 23andMe really have completely blown up, and really like no one can be anonymous anymore.
Yeah, it feels like the book kind of like exploded in relevance during the time from conception to actual publication. Yeah, it's really nice when that happens.
Well, you can't, because you can't really write to trends because it changes too quickly.
Right. What it is when you can see that
for a book to come out.
Yeah. People forget that part, but that's kind of a big part. And as we're talking about time management and the being an agent part, how do you balance that? I'm dying to know how agents do that. You don't have a small list, and your authors are busy.
I wrote The People We Choose when I was in my second trimester. My son's turning 2 this weekend. So I had to finish it. It was just like this thing that drove me through pregnancy that I found like all of my free time to work on, because I felt like if I didn't do it, I might not write again for years. Like once I was a mom, it's very hard to balance the day job and being a mom. And I felt like if I didn't have a contract and a deadline, I might not do it again. So that was really my incentive for The People We Choose. And writing now, is harder. It's really like my weekend nap time is like the writing time or a day off. So it's like if Alfie, my son, takes a bad nap, like that's not a writing day, So I never know going into it on a weekend if I'm going to get like an hour and a half or 2.5 hours or what it's going to be like. But I don't know, this, like if you're a writer and you love doing it as much as you say you're not going to do it for a little while, like if the story
Yeah.
comes to you, I think I told everyone in the last year, like, I am not writing again for like at least a few years. And then, you have an idea and you're
Yeah.
like, shoot, I can't not.
Right. Especially if you find the stuff that kind of like writes itself, which is the best experience when you can have it, but never a guarantee.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, that's tough. But like, do you think about whether Alfie's going to be like so excited when he can understand that you're an author and you have those books? And is he into books?
Oh, he's very into books. And I mean, like the best moment when he saw this was finding my author photo and mommy, like immediately just like clinging to that. And I was actually like very newly pregnant in my author photo. And I think of that every time I see
So
it. And it
cute.
was actually like the day I told my family that I was pregnant, like my brother was taking the photos, and it was like an hour after that I told them. So I get that special.
Oh,
But
I
yeah,
love
I don't know.
that. That's
I
so
hope
many
I
good
hope
memories wrapped
Alfie
up.
reads it. He
Yeah.
is pretty obsessed with books now. I hope that stays true.
Yeah, I love that. And family is so important in the book. Um, and you have such great little details about them. And I love well-drawn secondary characters, and you have such special ones. I'd
Oh,
love to
thank
know
you.
who are you most attached to of your secondary characters, and like what about them do you love? And is there anything about them that didn't make it to the page?
Oh, that's interesting.
Secondary
I
characters, I feel like get a lot of quiet backstory.
Yeah, no, it's true. And I love the moms so much. I mean, I feel like they were one of my favorite parts to write, but I also Max's a little sister, Marlo, and she
Yeah.
was an interesting one for me because I'm not like a big plotter, so I don't usually know where my stories go when I wish I did, but that's just like not a skill set that I have.
I feel
And
you.
it wasn't really till I was like finding out about all of it with Calliope that I was like, oh, wait a minute. It's not like she has another donor sibling in this equation, and it's someone that she wasn't really thinking about the rest of the summer because she was, so fixated on Max and their relationship, that then when I was thinking about what that meant for her and Marlo too, it really opened things up for me. Like I wasn't really sure where the second half would go. I knew that I wanted them to find their way to friendship, maybe more than that if they want to see themselves as family. But Marlo and who the role she played and her feelings about all of it, and some of the scenes in the end where they really are acting as a unit was like such a cool surprise. And moments like that make me glad that I don't know where I'm going when I write, because you get to discover those relationships as you go.
I love the good surprises. I thought you were going to say Ginger. See, I am not guessing anything right. I love Ginger. But no shout out for the fact that Noah cooks, because that really shot him up on my list. He makes some things that sound awesome and has some lemonade tricks. I love that there was Ginger and Ginger, that like little homage to her. Can you tell people a little more about Calliope's two best friends? Because I feel like they are really important in the story and also dealing with love in their own ways. One who kind of gets to choose and one who doesn't really.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Noah, like
Curious how
he's
intentional that contrast was too. Yeah.
yeah, no, that's a good question. It's Noah, who I said has been in love with Calliope, and I think is like wiser than his years in some ways, because whereas Calliope is like grossed out because she feels like family with him, like he ultimately wants that feeling of family, right? Which is what we all want from our partners ultimately. Like they, the people we spend our lives with become our family, and Noah gets that and like loves that part of their connection, like that they have shared all of these important life moments already. And he's I have a real soft spot for him. I'm not gonna lie, I toyed a little bit with the idea of it being more of a love triangle with some hope at the end, but I also wanted to maintain the importance of that friendship, because like as a teenager, friendship is, so much more important than the romantic parts, because like the friendship is what you're much more likely to, keep for the rest of your life. Um, so, he was very appealing to me. I feel like I was writing him post like to all the boys first coming out, and like really like, I don't know, I kind of like pictured someone beautiful like Peter in that way for him, but someone you also could like not love in that way, because it just didn't, it just didn't feel right. And then
Right.
there's Ginger, who is out and proud and struggling with that, though, because she's in a town where there's like two lesbians in the school like that are willing to talk about it anyway, which is very much like my high school experience in terms of like how uh, everybody was the same, and if you weren't the same, you probably didn't talk about it, in the very kind of homogenous school that I went to growing up. So she was important for me because she, you're right. She is a great character. Now I feel bad that I didn't call her out as one of my favorites.
That's okay. I love her enough. I love her enough for us both.
But she's someone who's like so bold and strong in some ways, but also just so tired of living in this small town, and like so ready for her next adventure, and just hoping that person is out there for her, and she may find that person in this book. And that I feel like that relationship is one that could have been fun to dive more into if there was all the time in the world.
Sequel. And then another aspect of the book that I really want to ask about is, so Max moves to this house, which is kind of legend in the town as being haunted. And there's this whole mystery associated with it. And I would love to know where the whole idea for that came in. Like, where did that tie into the story for you?
I was really obsessed with the idea of having like a dark, creepy house in the woods, and I honestly had no clue where that was going whatsoever. Like I truly had absolutely no idea. And I realized there had to be substance to it. And like that was another thing like I was discovering, as I went, and it became like really hugely important in terms of the history that Max's dad had there growing up with his family, and how that shaped him as a dad, and how it really like messed him up for many years to come. And it kind of took coming home to this place for him to really like be immersed in his childhood memories there, to like face the kind of parent he'd been and the kind of parent he should be for Max and Marlo. So what started as just like a random creepy house because it was fun to write, really
It did feel fun to write
into the story. Yeah, I mean, I recommend writing creepy houses into stories because it just, it adds a little sparkle to it.
Was that a direction you think you would ever go in writing? Do you have any like dark fantasy aspirations as far as authoring goes? Do you feel more at home in contemporary now?
Who knows? I can't imagine it right now. I think it'd be cool if an idea came into my head and I felt like I could actually do it justice. I'm not sure if my brain's like good enough to do that. I don't know. I feel like it's weird how specifically geared towards a certain kind of writing people are, like a really brilliant fantasy writer who's like contemporary, and then for me it's like fantasy. It's, I think. And then there's like the amazing people that can do both that I like truly cannot understand.
I can't understand those people. We just
how their brains work.
Yeah. No, that's not real. I just have to believe that that's not real. Too much. Did you have a part of the book that was your haunted house aside? Did you have a part of the book that was your favorite to write?
I don't know. I think I love when I'm writing like the feeling of your main character finding out like a big secret, and like the spiraling, like that spiraling moment where like everything hits.
A lot of good spiraling.
And everything
quality
that you
spiraling
thought you knew or wanted to know is suddenly put into question. I feel like that like those moments are so fun to write, like so hard, but so rewarding.
They are. That's a good one. Are you a music listener when you write? Are you a snacker
Oh,
when you write? What's
I
your writing vibe?
I can't, I like yell at anyone anywhere near me who makes like any, like if like a rustling sound, like if I'm at my parents' house writing and like someone's eating chips in the kitchen, it's like, what are you doing? You know, it's
Oh, that must make it even harder to really make use of the little time that you have.
yeah, it's a struggle, and I feel like my husband, the rest of my family, when I'm around them writing, like they all hate being near me. I mean, rightfully so. I would also hate being near me when I'm writing, but
So your books are pretty unique, but one of my favorite conversations to get in panels is, well, I love to ask people about book recommendations. Feel free to give those. But what books do you feel like yours is in conversation with? Because there aren't. It's fairly rare. I have thoughts, but I'm curious if you have any that kind of come to mind as being in conversation with the people we choose.
just we were really struggled thinking of comps that felt like truly similar. Like
Mhm.
it's a tough one because I really haven't read any other books that quite sit in the space. Not to like toot my horn. I don't mean that like ooh, I'm like the most original, but like I genuinely, because I don't know. It's such a it's a different theme than one I've come across. But I will say, to segue, you're like I thought of you immediately. You know, from my read of your book 2 years ago, which I
Mhm.
will say, I know we talked about how things um, float in and out because we both read so many books. But like as I was rereading, like it all, I'm like, no, I know, like this is, I know these people, I know these characters, I know this world, and
Mhm.
I feel like yours is also it hits so many of the same beats of being a like such an intensely like rich summer story about this summer that
Love some
you know you
stories.
totally cannot anticipate, and starts one way and ends a totally different way, and you come out of the summer so transformed, and the way you tackle the many different relationships in your book like are, you know, you just, they're so complex and layered and vibrant and swoony and um, truly swoony. Like yours is like
20 is what I go for. Everything else is a bonus.
swoony through to the end, which I could not do in a non-problematic way. Um,
Yeah.
so I really like. I thought of you right away, and just all
Oh,
your amazing story, which I would love to hear more about and to ask you questions about too, if you're, uh,
yeah.
yeah.
I love myself in my book. Yeah, so mine, I don't have mine displayed as nicely as you do.
This is my mom. This is my mom's 2 copies, by the way. She accidentally ordered 2
Oh,
because she forgot she ordered 1. And
oh, that's
yeah,
nice. My sister orders a bunch on purpose and then hands them out to her friends.
that's very
But now
sweet.
my niece is of YA age, so apparently her friends have been passing it around too.
I
And she's
love
like, they
that.
keep asking for it. And I'm like, buy the book. And I'm like, yes, you keep telling your friends to buy the book. That's right. You don't pass it around.
Yes,
Um,
please. Yeah.
yeah. So Cool for the Summer is my summer story, set between Westchester, New York, speaking of setting books where we're from, and Outer Banks, North Carolina. It's a dual timeline. And it's about a girl named Laura who returns to school for her senior year and finally gets the attention of the guy that she has been crushing on forever, only to have her summer fling, who happens to have been a girl, something very confusing to her since she didn't know she was queer, and still doesn't really know what that means for her. And that summer fling has just transferred to her school. So I see someone mentioning Cool for the Summer, the song in the chat. Yes, it is. I often describe it as bisexual YA Grease with better life choices. But also, if you mash up Demi Lovato's Cool for the Summer, which not only gave me the title, but is actually a major plot point in the book, and Taylor Swift's Betty, you kind of get like the perfect musical comp titles for Cool for the Summer. So that is my book. And by the way, I would have said Far from the Tree for the people we choose by Robin Benway. And also, I am blanking on the title of Dante Medima's book, but it is also about a DNA test. So that's the other one I was thinking of. I got to get my book recommendations in there. It's a novel in verse set in Alaska, and I'm so mad at myself that I can't remember the title now. But anyway, just throwing that there. So that is cool for the summer. And yeah, so also about love and unexpected, make you reevaluate things about yourself and your relationship kind of love. So definitely does have its links to The People We Choose, in addition to being a summer story with a lot of feelings.
A lot of feelings.
Yeah. And the male love interest even has a little sister.
Yes, there is. And
there's that.
It makes people so much more endearing when they're a good big brother. I feel like there's so much truth to that. I feel like one of the coolest parts of your book, there are many, is the dual timeline and how we get to see the summer unfolding at the same time we're seeing this like very dramatic back to school season unfolding. So did you always envision it as a dual timeline book? Like, was that an essential piece of it from the beginning?
Yes. So that was always the case, even though I've never done one before. There was just like no other way I could see this being told, because really what it is the story is happening entirely in the present, but it's Laura's reflecting on the past kind of to understand what's going on in the present. So she keeps hitting kind of these little mini milestones in her relationship with the male love interest, Chase, that send her reeling back to think about the summer and understand how she's feeling, why she's feeling that way. Just, things that kind of remind her of different events that happened, all leading up to helping her understand that, like, it wasn't just this like thing she kind of did for fun, or that was easy, or that was stress relief, or was just something to do, but that she actually, like, that's what romantic feelings are supposed to feel like. And that's what like real based in something attraction feels like. And I don't think she would have been able to get there in examining her own identity and sexual orientation if she didn't get the thing that she had forever hoped for. So it's really like, if she didn't achieve her dream, she wouldn't have figured out that's not her dream anymore. So that's, and I feel like it needed the dual timeline to work that way, but somebody described it as like all the action happening in the now narrative. And I was like, yes, that is correct. Everything in the past is just feeding the now narrative.
But I love that we get to see it
timeline that way.
Play out. Like, it feels like real time, and we get, we're so in the moment with Laura. I feel like her voice and the way we learn about the world and her feelings with her is just like so powerfully done. And I mean, like, for teens too, like, to have that crush that you've been obsessed with forever and to have that come true and realize like that is not
over it.
yeah. And I love too when the love interest who you don't pick or you do pick, like, they're both wonderful in their own way. So it's not like an easy decision at the surface, and you do that so well.
I mean, I think people really don't like love triangles in YA, as everyone pretty much knows. So part of that, though, is there's always one that you want. Like you talked about, considering whether you would have made like a love triangle with Max and Noah, but like you wouldn't have wanted Noah, even though he's great, because that's not how Calliope feels. And so, a love triangle there, like, you wouldn't have truly been for both of them. I mean, Noah I love that you didn't end up making Noah like kind of a fallback. Like, her feelings for him were honest. And so what I really wanted in Cool for the Summer was I wanted them both to feel like options. I wanted them both to feel deserving of her love, and that there was nothing but, examining her heart and examining her head and figuring out what was right for her. I didn't want their behavior making the choice for her. Just wanted her to like get it eventually. Yeah.
No, that's you do that so well. And I feel like the reader, like, you feel all of like that angst of like, what am I feeling? What does this mean? What is the right thing to do? And of course, like, friendships are so important in that, and the good and bad of the friend group.
Yeah.
Like, how did that friend group come
Yeah.
together for you? And you know,
It's
Shannon,
funny
like how
because
all of
like,
that.
yeah. So Laura has three best friends. Shannon, who is like the school cool girl. Um, Gia, who is very like that girl who's going to marry her high school boyfriend, captain of the cheerleading squad, or she will be. She's, like, and she's very kind of laser focused on making her life like look like her future right now. And then Kiki, who is, I think, the most fun character in the book, who's like quirky and fun. And she has a podcast that's about mystery solving. And she's just like kind of gothic, and she just like maintains an air of mystery and is really fun and great. Like, she's the book that when people read it, they're like, I want a sequel about her. And she just kind of kept unfolding because she was just the most fun to write, and you could just like feel her personality everywhere. Shannon was the one where like every note was like, you got to make her a little more likable. No, keep going. You have to make us actually like her. But the thing is that like a lot of best friends in high school really are just kind of toxic, but there is something that's magnetic about them. And it's clear other people view something magnetic and charismatic about them, and it makes you want to be in their orbit. And especially if they have kind of a caretaker vibe about them, which Shannon does. Like, she wants to make sure you're having a good time. And that is something that if you don't have that leadership element to you, if you are not the kind of person who like makes plans, takes charge, say, this is how we're going to have a great night today, having somebody like that in your life is really, really valuable in high school. There's something that has always given Laura confidence in that way by being kind of Shannon adjacent. And then when she goes over the summer and like bonds with Jasmine, she's like, oh, I don't need to be like someone adjacent for confidence. I have to understand what it is I love about myself. So Shannon's a little bit of a foil for that. And I just recently described her as like, Shannon is who she needs in high school, and then probably will have waningly little to do with until she's done with her by like sophomore year of college. Whereas I hope she'll stay. I don't think she's really going to stay much in touch with Gia either, because I think Gia is going to be very romance and getting married immediately after college focused. But I like to think Kiki would like really stick around. And then there are the summer friends that I think, will always be at least like social media buddies. And that's not a small thing, as anybody who like makes their best friends off Twitter, present company included, can attest. So I hope the book shows like you can make new friends in new situations and, among other things. But that's a big one for me. Do you think at all about what your characters' lives are going to be like after the book is over? Do you give that thought? Do you like picture them in college or at work or whatever they're going to do? Or is it like done when you're done with the book?
I feel like to some extent, I mean, I always want like the fluffy, like they all stay friends, or like if they're dating at the end, like of course they're going to be together forever. I feel like I don't let my mind wander to like any sadness for them in the future. They have a very unrealistic, too perfect future in my head, but I feel like I love them all too much to think of, anything less for them. But yeah,
yours
no,
ends up in such a healthy place.
But I want to believe it stays healthy, that they, continue to grow their relationship and to, learn about one another and appreciate that. And, it's so funny what you said about her and Shannon, because I feel like that is so true and so real for high school. I feel like that's a very realistic, view for high school characters, whether it's friendships or romances. The reality is like, yes, you might go to a few dorm parties together freshman year, but like you realize with a little time and space that the things that were important to you in high school, or you thought were important, or things you thought really bonded you, are like not really true to who you are. And it's just so easy to fall in line in high school because no one wants to be lonely, so you like, you cling to what's familiar. And I feel like with Shannon, it is like she's so horrible in some ways, but I totally get it. Like I totally get why everyone wants to be liked, like, especially in high school. It's, that's human nature. And if you've found your way with, like, the most popular girl in school, I mean, it's
Stick
hard
with
to fight
it.
that. Yeah.
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 You did give a little peek into the future, though. You don't see a lot of epilogues in young adult books. I feel like they're usually for romance novels where they show you how they got engaged, but you have an epilogue. Was that always there?
I think, yeah, and I think I've had one in all four. I'm like trying to think back to the
Oh, is that
early
true?
ones, but I'm like, I can't. And you add, like, do I think about them? I do, and I like needed to be on the page, so I don't know if I think much beyond that. But I don't know. Maybe I'm just a sucker, especially for YA and teens, and thinking about how I want to feel when I finish a book. I like that. Like, don't worry, things worked out. I mean, what about you? Do you like continue to spin off and think about them, or do you like to like
so much.
close the book where it
So
ends?
much. And I think I overly force myself not to indulge those thoughts. And like people are like, Cool for the Summer ended like too early, basically. Not that it's like not resolved, but they just want, and I want generally like more time with a couple. And so I feel bad, but I'm like, if I had written like another scene of them like spending that day together, I'm like, that's just self-indulgent. But yeah, people want that. They just spent a whole book reading about these characters. So I kind of wish I had I'm just like, can I write like a totally plotless epilogue that's just them enjoying being in each other's space?
I
And I
think
guess the
so. I
answer
would
is
read
like,
that.
yeah, I probably could have, but I didn't. So I think of it in terms of like, I'm like, oh, I'll write a bonus scene. And then I couldn't even find the time to write a bonus scene. Like I was just like scrambling to finish my next book. So I didn't even get to do that, but I really hope someday, like I think a lot of just how they spent the rest of the day that the book ends on. Because I know that the next day, it's not going to be a fun day the next day. Like at some point, Laura has to go to school and reckon with the relationship she burned. Like I feel like I can't spoil anything in this book. It's all pretty there. When people are like, "Oh, I was so nervous about which one she was going to choose," I'm like, "Really? I'm not really secretive about which way this book goes."
You've gotten that?
I get that like a decent amount. I was like, "Oh, I really hope she chooses Jasmine."
That's
I'm like,
really interesting.
I make clear this is a sapphic romance everywhere. Like I don't know. I'm always surprised when people are like, not sure which way this is going to go. So I find that really interesting.
Sad if she ended up not with Jasmine, because I feel like it's clear. Like even when things are all rosy for her, like with him, that is not where her heart. You know what I mean? If
nobody
you really
has ever said
someone and all you can do is think about that other person.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
That is a sign.
Exactly. Nobody has said I wish she ended up with Chase, but they were nervous that she would. So I'm like, okay, at least everyone is like satisfied that what they wanted to happen happened. But it's a funny thing. And I also get asked a lot about a sequel, and I'm like, I don't know what people want to see in a sequel. I'm like, they got happy. Happy's good. Let's like let them be happy.
I think you really make us earn that happiness. I feel like because we spend pretty much the whole time like seeing how they fell in love, and then how we know things in the fall like are not where any of us want them to be. It takes them time to find their way back to one another, that then you just want to like roll around in that love and that like
I know.
all those happy feelings.
I wish I'd given the roll around. It's so funny because I just got my edit letter for my next book, and literally the 2 notes are like, again, the best friend sucks. Make her more likable. I got that note from literally.
Do you have a crappy best friend growing up that inspires these characters?
I did have a best friend from 3 on and off from 3 to 25. Who at that point dropped out of my life. And I guess that affected me and my writing more than I thought. Not bad in the same way. And so that's funny. It's not like her personality inspires this, but the having close friends who drop out of your life or who you can't quite explain being there. Like she was somebody who often in our friendship, it was really clear. People were like, why? She makes you so miserable. And it's different feelings, a responsibility to stay in the friendship or, whatever attachment you have. But I guess I am drawn to writing those like best friends who, you know, nobody understands like why they stay in your life. So it's literally that. And then this time they get together too fast. My next book is
The
really like
balance of it. You're
romance
like, I got
yeah,
it.
and I just wanted it like as early as possible, and I jumped the gun a little bit apparently, but I just thought it was so funny that one was like the exact same note I got all over Cool for the Summer, and then the opposite of what I got from Cool for the Summer, which yeah, I thought was really funny. But I so much think about the characters off the page. I do it more with my college set romances, my new adult, because like I feel like the sky's the limit for where they can go after that. Like you can
Yeah.
picture their weddings in a way I'm not doing for my YA characters. Not that I picture weddings, but I picture stuff. But yes, I'm very into the characters off the page. And like I asked, details that didn't make it. Like I love, you know, think sometimes you plan so much about them and then not everything about it can make it to the page. Is there anything about Max? I want to know more Max. He's so sweet. Like I feel for him so much and I want to imagine that he ends up with a great girl eventually. Give me that he ends up with a great girl
I
eventually.
do too. He's
Yeah.
clearly going to, and Calliope will be,
Mhm.
you know, his best person standing up there with him at the wedding. You know, I feel like they're headed there. I think that, you know, with Max, it's interesting. The note I got through my editor is a very intense editor in a beautiful way,
Mhm.
but like I have like 6 rounds per book.
Wow.
And what we worked on with Max a lot was like he was really angry. I mean, understandably, like when he finds out
Yeah.
about all of this, but like was too angry in my first few drafts in a way that made him too unlikable, like for the second half, that like it
Mm.
was too much. And it's a fine line because like as a teen, your reactions are not perfect to things, you know. I mean, as adults, our
Mm.
reactions to things are not perfect. And
Right. No,
you
his is
know,
very believable. Yeah.
I didn't want to make him like too like, oh wow, that's like unexpected and kind of stinks, but like let's
Mm.
make the best of it, you know. Like these things
Right.
take time. But his anger, like in the first few drafts, like definitely my editor was very smart to be like, let's like
Pull that back a
untangle
little.
this a little
Yeah.
bit more, because like while it is his right to be upset about this news, there's also nobody to blame, you know. Like there's no one is at fault, you know. If this donation had not happened, like Calliope would not exist. So
Right. And I love how it keeps coming back to that because it's kind of like you can't hate everything about this. Nobody
yes,
can hate everything about this.
yes, and donation is like
Yeah.
necessary for so many families to have children. And it's like,
Yeah.
you know, thank God we live in a time and world where that can happen.
Yes. Oh, well, I see Carter. Hello.
Yes. I just came in to start our Q&A section if you all are ready. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So Casey asks, do you have a specific time you try to write and or a minimum word count?
I think those things kind of drop out with children. I used to. But it was like you said before, Caitlin, like if we're gonna get a window on Sundays, like that's literally my writing time. If somebody will like, if you know my husband can take both of them or my in-laws come and we'll watch them and I can sit down for a few hours on Sunday, like that's when it's happening. But otherwise, full-time job. I don't write on Saturdays. So that's pretty much it for me. What once worked for me was leaving open my Word document all day and kind of coming back to it as if I were taking smoke breaks. And I wrote 1,000 words that way. I used to, like, once upon a time when I was writing like behind the scenes and just visiting and under the lights in the early 2010s, I would like sit down for 2,000 words. But now it's like, I got to applaud myself if I get anything.
Do you get mad at your past self for not being more productive before you had 2 children? Because I think I like look back like, what was I doing with all of my time before Alfie came along?
I don't, because I was writing so much. I didn't have kids. So I've been married. This is going to be 14 years. And I didn't have kids for the first 10 because I just like could not mentally get there. I know in large part until I finished like writing what I wanted to write. So in truth, I think about that like I gave a weird amount of my life to publishing books. I mean, and that's just like whatever. If my brain wasn't there at kids, my brain wasn't there at kids. But I wrote 6 books. I published 6 books. Sorry, I wrote more than 6 books. And then when I was done with the last one and I had nothing under contract and I had finished my self-pub trilogy, I was like, my brain cleared and I was like, now I want kids. And that's how that happened. So I literally, actually, embarrassingly, kind of arranged having kids around writing books.
That is not embarrassing. It's hard to write books. It's hard to,
I know, it just
keep that
feels
momentum
silly.
going.
And like they were all like, and they were such little books that like almost no one's read. And I'm like, I gave all that time, but I don't, no regrets. I love those books. And I like to think each one kind of piles on itself till you get here. But it's, yeah, I don't think I've ever admitted that to other people before, that I sort of arranged my life that way. But yeah, I did. So I feel like I got in that time and I was just like, because if I have a kid and I can never write again, these are the books I want to have done. And then once I hit those, and then I call that phase 1 of my career, and I call, then there was a wave where I could not write at all for like a year and a half. I could barely do anything. I wrote some scraps of what will be my 2022 book, Home Field Advantage. And that's like it. So now I call this phase 2. I like having my second phase, but
It's a good phase.
That's that time, once upon a time. Oh my God, that's so good. Use that time. That time is so good.
I don't know if you saw Tayleen's comment in the chat that says the books you wrote pre-baby include one of the best romances ever, Last Will and Testament. So
thank you.
I think that's such a cute comment. So I cheer.
Thank you. I do love that book a lot. I do.
All right. So Jesse asked, how are you so awesome? Okay, but really,
I think that one's for Caitlyn.
Both of you juggle so much. Caitlyn, you are a mom, a writer, and an incredible agent who is so fast at everything. How do you do it?
Well, I think being a mom honestly has been hugely helpful. Like, it's made me, I feel like I can do in like 4 hours now what I used to do in like 10 hours. I don't waste time like ever anymore. I feel like 20 something me, like I was always like very hardworking and always like took agenting like very seriously. But I don't know, you just like, I look at the news more. Like, you take little breaks in the workday. Maybe it's partly like working from home too. I just use like every scrap of the day I can find, like my son is going through like awful sleep regression and I've been like holding him to fall asleep way more than I should probably admit. But it's the only way to get sleep. And I'm like holding him and he's quite heavy at this point, and like have my phone and the Kindle app open like behind his shoulder, and I'm reading usually, for work while I'm like putting him down, and my arms are very sore and my wrist hurts. But like I feel like, I'm getting things done. And I think I genuinely love what I do. I love the amazing authors that I work with. And I'm not just saying that because some of them are here. Like, I feel truly blessed to be doing the job that I'm doing. And I like care so deeply about their careers, and like, it all matters. It's a huge like, and beautiful weight to be an agent. It's not something to take lightly. So I care so much about it that it really does bleed into like my personal life in a way that I prefer. Like, I feel like I like that organic mixing of like personal and professional. And that's like totally what work from home life is. And I just, if I'm not with my son, I'm probably reading or sending emails, or like maybe I find like a scrap of time at the end of the day to watch TV, because that is also very important to like let your brain unravel.
Yes.
I read an embarrassingly small amount of like published books that are not my authors, and because
it's impossible.
I feel like TV, like, it really is important to like let your brain do something different.
Yeah. It gets really hard to read if all you do is read. Like, it kind of builds upon itself if you don't kind of let the steam out every once in a while, I find. I'm also like, my night ends with watching TV always, which is a terrible way to go to bed, but like, I just have to like let everything out somehow.
Yeah.
And I play really stupid games on my phone.
How do you, Dahlia, do like everything you do for the LGBTQ community, like on top of your full-time job and being a mom
Yeah.
and being an author, like you're also such an amazing voice in like the Twitter community online. Like that like blows my mind that you are also able to do that.
Thank you. I'm going to assume and hope that nobody from my day job is in this chat and admit that I am often kind of doing multiple things at the same time. I mean, my day job does require attention and I give it attention, but I am right now facing my personal computer and right here is my work computer and they're both on and going at all times. And I just kind of back and forth, back and forth. So during the day, and especially like if I take a lunch break, so during the day, I'm working on LGBTQ reads a lot. This week, I also really scrambled to get in my BuzzFeed post for summer LGBTQ books, LGBTQYA, and that was 28 books. So that was a lot. And then, yeah, I mean, this is actually the first time in my life where I feel like I'm falling behind. The thing is that working from home is amazing and I am not dying to run back to my office, but I had not realized, and I've always hated commuting. So I didn't realize the big upside of commuting is it's the only time I'm not necessarily working or parenting. And now like I'm done with work at 5, I am parenting at 5:01.
Yeah.
So that part is really difficult and I don't have that window to do other things. I wrote the first like 10 to 15,000 words of cool for the summer on the train going to and from work and like I don't have a time to do that anymore. I wrote most of my next book during my maternity leave. I don't know how to keep doing that. So, you can't write a book that fast doing, a couple of hours on Sundays. So, and then on top of that, I'm still editing anthologies. That's what I'm most behind on right now. Technically, the stories aren't due for another 6 days, but half my authors got their stories in early. So I was like, oh, that's so great. I'll just like get those out of the way early. But they're absorbing and they take care and full attention is a hard thing to do with 2 kids. And it's just, I don't know.
Do you drink a lot of coffee? Like, is
Like,
caffeine an important part of your life?
Still nursing. So unfortunately not. I tried to like up my caffeine intake and got dehydrated so fast and that nursing was not going great. So no, it's 1 cup of coffee a day. So I really have nothing especially making this work except for thankfully, a babysitter, but who's here the exact hours of my day job, and a wonderful husband and family. So but a 9-month-old and a 4-year-old are kind of a lot for anyone to watch on their own.
Lot,
so it's a lot of like playing man one-on-one. And if I have one of the kids, writing is almost impossible. So I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out how to make it work. Thankfully, my editor was very kind about extending my deadline significantly. I promised I would give in a polished book if she did, and I did. So there's that. But yeah, eventually I got to figure this out. I don't know how long it'll take to write the next book after that, but I wrote the first 1,000 words on Sunday. And
Yay.
I'm excited about the potential of that. I mean, it's not contracted anything. It's what I hope will be, my 2023 if I get to have a 2023. So we'll see how that goes. But there's no great answer except that, yes, the TLDR is I do a lot of things during my day job and while, holding my child in one hand and typing whatever I can with one hand with the other and all that kinds of things, multitasking. And I look forward to having more caffeine one day.
I've made submissions with Alfie sitting on my lap. I kind of feel like he's a good luck charm in those moments. I'm like, I don't know. I said there's something very cool about like the union of personal and professional in that way. And
yeah,
we're all humans.
It was cool before the keyboard mashing started, and now I can't get away with that anymore. But I do love the idea of him as a good luck charm. He sounds like he's nicely behaved.
The screen is like so transfixing that I get like a little bit of time. Like he comes in at the end of every Zoom, usually like our agency Zoom every week, and just like stare. So I get a good like 10-15 minutes of him just like wide-eyed in all of the screen. And then like the keyboard banging, or he rips my Z key off constantly. But
all right,
we do what we can.
All right, well, we are out of time. Is there anything you two want to plug, tell people to buy, tell people to follow you on, that kind of thing?
The people we choose.
Yes, good choice. You can do that in the link below. Same with Cool for the Summer down there.
Yes.
I was gonna say, I feel like Dahlia is
You
much
need the
better
cover
at
to draw
social
you in.
media than I am. I feel like there's
Just spending too much time on it. That is what I am doing.
but it's a skill. Not everyone can fake being good at social media. You know that like. I feel like
I'm not bothering with TikTok. Tumblr I got just for LGBTQ reads. Yes, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Miss Dalai Lama, MISSDAHLELAMA. Or LGBTQreads.com is where I have my website with curated LGBTQ plus recs for all ages. And that's at LGBTQ Reads everywhere. And please buy Cool for the Summer. And I will plug, I don't have it in reaching distance, of course, but my YA Shakespeare retellings anthology with a whole bunch of wonderful authors reimagining Shakespeare called That Way Madness Lies came out in March. And I feel like it sort of slipped under the Cool for the Summer radar, but I want to mention it because I love it and my authors worked so hard and it is such a wonderful collection. And it'll be like reading Shakespeare, like you're doing something really intellectual with it for the summer. Yes.
All right.
Okay. Done self-plugging.
Anything you want to add, Caitlyn?
No, I'm on Twitter. I try on Twitter. I love Instagram. I'm there. I post a lot of pictures of my son, but also book things.
He's very cute.
I can't help myself.
Don't help yourself. It's great.
I like the book and baby combo is my favorite kind of book photo.
Yeah.
Across the board on Instagram.
Yeah, my whole bio.
I hear
was
his voice in the background now that he hears me talking about him.
All right, we'll wrap up then. You can check out our other events we have going on the rest of this month. We have another event with Dahlia. Yes, at the end of the month at like 1 p.m. on June 23rd, I believe. And then we also have another YA event at the end of the month with Bethany C. Morrow. So be sure to check that out.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. All right. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you
Both.
for coming.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye.